Hey guys and girls out there in MIDI guitar land, it's Doily Manager from Seoul, South Korea, and today I want to just cover something which kind of slapped me in the face yesterday in the category of you learn something new every day, and this is to do with the SY1000 and program changes. And I think this probably applies to pretty much all BOSS devices that do this kind of thing. So what that is, send program changes and have MIDI PC, Midi Thru capabilities. Now, the reason I discovered this was because I was responding to a post by this user, BenJazz31, on the vGuitar forum. And this user is having some problems when they're trying to send MIDI through from a foot controller that's sending into their GT1000, and then there's some MIDI being passed through to a Tonex and onto some other devices. And the Tonex is doing some weird stuff, and well, the Tonex is probably doing what you'd expect it to do, but the GT1000 is not doing exactly what the user expects it to do. And it's quite a difficult post to follow, but I thought in my attempt to be a helpful MIDI guitarist citizen that I would try and replicate the problem and see what I could find. So let's just have a quick look at kind of how this thing works. So I'm in my SY1000. I've got the editing software on right now because it's a bit easier for me to control this way. All right. I'm going to go to the MIDI settings in here. Let's have a quick look at this. So receive channel is 2. I always receive data to channel 2 on my SY1000 because the channel 1's allocated for the Axe effects. Omni mode is off because I want it to listen to only 2. Transmit is channel 1 because I want data that it receives to be forwarded on to channel 1, which can be used at the Axe effects or in DAW or whatever. Okay, MIDI in through is off at the moment, but typically I would have this set to USB because the data which is coming in the DIN ports gets sent out over USB to a computer and on to other destinations. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to turn this off. USB in through, I usually have set to off because I don't want the USB data that's coming in, USB MIDI data, which is coming into the device, to be sent to the MIDI ports, to the DIN MIDI ports. The controllers that I have are essentially monodirectional, more or less, so I don't need that function. But today, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to have that set to USB out because any MIDI which I send into the device today, I want to be shown over here on this monitor. Okay, clock out's on, but that's not really relevant at this stage. PC out is off, transmit map is fixed, and receive map is fixed. I would typically have these here, but I mean, there's different use cases. So the first thing is if you just set this to PC out on, when I go to the SY1000 and manually change a preset on the device, you'll see that we get this kind of data here. It's coming out on channel 1, as I mentioned. So we've got CC0 and CC32 both sending a 0, and that is a bank control message there. And then it's followed by the program change number. Okay, so I guess preset 1 on the SY1000 is program change 0. So when I move up from 0, it shows you program change 1. And if I move down, we should get a 0. Yep, we got a 0 at the end there. So it's just important to note that anytime you send a PC out message from the device, where you might be pressing the buttons on the device or turning the knob to change the presets, it's going to send bank data. Okay, so this is the LSB and the MSB, which some devices use to select different groups of 128 presets. Okay, let's turn that off. When it's off, I'm just going to clear this. When that's off and I turn the dial, nothing happens. Okay, of course, because there's no transmission going on there. Okay, next. Now, I'm here in my DAW. I've set up a program change sending clip in Ableton Live. I'm sending to the SY1000 DAW control port on channel 2. Okay, now when I send this message to the SY1000, try again. When I send this message to the SY1000, Okay, so I sent program change 0 and it remained on patch 1. I'm going to send program change 1. Okay, this is a little confusing. Program change 1 on the in Ableton Live is actually PC 0. Okay, but it's the first program, so it's kind of like think about it like that. So as I'm doing this, the messages are changing, but you'll notice something is a little bit different here. Okay, first of all, let's just go back to the beginning. When I send a message to the device, it's forwarding the program change without bank data because I'm not sending bank data over here. If I send bank data, it will send both. Okay. But I think probably in the case of the OP in this particular thread, the OP is probably not sending bank change data, but they might be, who knows. So now my presets are changing on the device and I'm getting this message passed through without the bank change data, as there is no bank change data. And on it goes. Yeah, and that just works as is. So if you were having a conflict with some kind of like CC32 message, which is typically used for bank changes, that was having, causing some problem at the Tonex, it could be because of that. And so I would recommend probably in that case that you would deactivate the bank change messages at the original MIDI controller, which is being sent directly to the GT1000 or SY1000 in this case. Okay, carrying on from that, there's also, patch MIDI. So I was getting a little confused because I had actually activated patch MIDI. And if I go into any of my presets here, okay, so this is preset 1, but in the patch MIDI now it's set to off. And actually I went through to all my presets and turned them off. I mean, I don't use this typically. I can see a use case for it, but let's make it this preset, rotary organ. So that's preset 5. This is supposed to be a quick video. All right, so what did I say? Channel 5, it doesn't really matter. I'm just choosing any old value. Close, and I'm going to write that. Okay, so now that I've got that patch MIDI setting adjusted, I'm going to turn the PC out on. We should see now when I change to preset 5. Yeah, that it's sending this bank and program change message. But the truth of the matter is that I don't actually want that data right now, so I'm going to kill it and resave the preset. I guess that sort of might get one going, but there is one more interesting thing that came up, and you may have noticed that I've got this application, this soft synth open over here. This is Animogue Z. Animogue Z is an MPE virtual instrument. I've got it connected with the SY1000 DAW controllers. It's input port now. So I've set the channel that it can receive on to Omni. I would typically use it at MPE with MIDI Guitar 3, but just for the purposes of today, I'm going to set it to Omni. And so now basically any data which comes from the SY1000 is going to be feeding the synthesizer. Keep an eye on this pitch bend range thing over here, okay? We'll come back to it in a second. So I was having a problem where when I changed presets, I was getting this weird string of CC data coming in on every channel. And I was thinking, oh, every channel, it must have something to do with strings. But I searched for this information and I couldn't find it. I guess I didn't search in a typical format. I was trying to search like CC hash 101, CC hash 100, like the way I would typically write MIDI data, because it's a 3-column kind of value kind of thing, because you have 0 to 127. Okay, so but I couldn't find anything. Turns out that it's something to do with pitch bend range, but I couldn't figure out why on earth this data was getting sent. But I was kind of thinking, well, potentially if you had a device which was receiving, which was expecting to receive CC data on, say, channel 38 or channel 100 or 101, which I think my Axifex actually is configured to receive some CC data on, well, this could cause you an issue. And I thought perhaps something similar to this is what's causing the problem for the forum member who posted about this issue. So it turns out that if you're in the guitar to MIDI settings of the SY1000 here, and you change the bend range, it will have an effect on the pitch bend range directly, or the pitch bend range settings directly within some synthesizers. So watch this. I just set it to 0, and now the bend range is 48. Okay, well that was my original default setting, because I would typically have this on MPE and I'd leave that at 48. But if I put it to Omni, I just leave that at 48, and I start changing the bend range here, you can see it's changed to RPN, registered parameter number. Okay, so, and you can see over on the MIDI monitor here that it's sending this data on every channel, and the only part which is changing is control 6. But it turns out that CC101, CC100, CC38 in combination kind of function in a similar manner to the CC0 and CC32 for bank change, but this is like parameter data. So if you ever have this kind of thing happening in your system, it's got something to do with pitch bend range, but further to that, it also has something to do. All right, so just for by way of explanation, I always keep the bend range on the SY1000 set to 12 plus minus 12. Okay, and this is actually turned off now, but even though it's turned off, it's still sending that data. Okay. Now, if we go back to the guitar MIDI settings over here, here's another little thing. If you change the type, you can see it's sending a change in here too. Let's just clear that. Okay, so now if I change the chromatic type to off, we're getting all this data. If I change chromatic to type 1, type 2, she doesn't do anything, but if I turn chromatic off, okay, that's when it sends the message. So I was actually getting this these numbers every time I would change preset. Not every time, but on some presets, and it was where I had the chromatic. Sometimes I had the chromatic set to type 1, sometimes, whatever type, and sometimes I had it turned off. And so I would get this string of control data. I was like, what on earth is that? Where's that coming from? Okay, well, now we know it's tied to guitar to MIDI, pitch to MIDI, and it's got to do with any different state of any of these parameters where there's a change in the system, it's going to send this. Okay, so I don't know if that's helpful or if it makes life more confusing, but it's good to be aware of these things. I'm quite excited that the SY1000 can actually send that RPN data to a synthesizer so it knows what the pitch bend range will be. That's a cool thing. I'm not sure about other synthesizers. Let's what could we take as an example? I don't know. Let's take Rolly, Equator 2. Okay, so we're going to put Rolly into standard mode, and we're just going to check the global pitch bend range is 12. And what I want to see here is if I change the data here, whether it will have an effect. No, it doesn't seem to do anything to Equator 2. Okay. I'm guessing that this is going to work with the other Moog applications. Okay, so here we have the Model 15, and I'm going to go into the settings, MIDI. Now this is set to bend range 2. First of all, I have to tell it that I want it to receive MIDI from here. Okay. And it's on Omni. And now when I change, yeah, okay. So it's changing to RPN when it senses a change in the pitch bend range. Yeah, and when it gets to 0, it returns to the initial value, which was plus minus 2 semitones. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to note. So that kind of covers all the SY1000 stuff. I'm thinking about MIDI Guitar 3, and I'm thinking about, okay, let's get this synth over here. Now I'm going to tell Animoog that I want it to receive data from MIDI Guitar out. Okay, and I'm going to put it into MPE mode. And let's see what happens. Okay, so we'll put that back to 48. And let's see what happens when I start changing the messages in here. So first of all, okay, so something is happening as I change the bend range because it immediately flipped to RPN. Okay, so that's good, I guess. Now what about if we go into MIDI Legacy and we start changing the bend range there? Okay, so when you turn the bends off, it returns to the 48 that I had set as the default. So it's exactly the same functionality in here as we see in the SY1000. Okay, well, I think that's all I really have to say on the topic, but I just think it's a good thing to be aware of. And just by additional way of demonstration, I just want to show here, I've got MIDI Guitar 3 in MIDI MPE mode and no bends. And if I change this to any new bend range, it re-triggers a message here. So on it goes. If you know of any other soft synthesizers that do this, or hardware synthesizers for that matter, although I think it's quite standard in hardware synthesizers to have that RPN message that they can receive, and to know what the pitch bend range of the transmitting device is. But it's not something I've seen so much in software synthesizers. But if you know anything about that, please feel free to add to the comments or whatever, so that everyone can be privy to this useful information. Okay, that's it. I hope you found this interesting and useful. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.